We will begin the webinar shortly. The line will remain silent until we begin. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We're going to begin shortly. We want to allow just a couple minutes for everyone to log in and settle in. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We will now officially begin today's webcast. My name is Laurie Worley, and today's webinar, Hart InterCivic, The Power of Choice in Idaho, is scheduled for 1 hour, including time for question and answer. After we complete our presentation, we'll go straight into question and answer. So please submit questions as they occur to you via the question and answer box on your GoToWebinar console. The phone lines will remain muted throughout the presentation. We will make a recording of the webinar and the slides available to you via email following the webinar. The webinar is sponsored by Hart InterCivic. Hart InterCivic is a full-service election solutions innovator. We partner with state and local governments to deliver the most secure, accurate, and reliable elections. Joining us today from Hart is Ron Clevenger. He's the VP of Sales at Hart, and he is also an Ada County resident. Ron?
Thank you very much for the introduction, and welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today, and thanks for joining the webinar for the state of Idaho. I know, being an Idaho resident, I follow the Pacific Northwest weather very closely, and while I'm on the road today, I am in the Pacific Northwest, and we've all been introduced to winter, I think, as of yesterday across the state. I wanted to just say hello, and it's a pleasure to have you on the phone with us today and on the webinar. So let's just dive right in. I'm going to talk about just a handful of things, and as Lori mentioned, your voices cannot be heard, but you can ask questions. So please type your questions as they come to you. I might have some questions for you along the way that you can participate, and at the end we will read the questions and answer them. So we'll talk about a few things. In terms of the agenda, I want to just talk about why this message today is timely for Idaho. For those of you that know us, maybe a reintroduction of Hart InterCivic, and for those of you that don't know us, we want you to kind of just at least know who we are and our history in the business and with our clients. We're going to talk about products for Idaho, and as I mentioned, we'll conclude with Q&A. So why is this message timely? Well, if you go out to Secretary Isursa's website, the Secretary of State's office on October 24th certified a new voting system for the state of Idaho, and this is just a screenshot of the website. You can see here that Hart InterCivic's voting system was certified on October 24th, and you now officially have a second option in the state of Idaho. And we've gotten a lot of good feedback in this brief period of time and interest from a handful of counties that are interested in upgrading their technology. And so we wanted to conduct this webinar and give people an opportunity to learn a little bit more about Hart. And so, you know, it's been a long time for Idaho. You guys have had the same equipment for quite some time in terms of options. And I wanted to just quickly review what's new in Idaho. So just a few bullet points. Number one, digital scanning versus optical scanning technology is the basis of our systems, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Lighter weight, accessible devices. So while they aren't feather weight by any means, they are lighter and getting smaller as the years go by. I know in Idaho there's not a lot of ballot boxes that get used, but for managing write-ins, there's no more need for managing fussy diverters inside ballot boxes. That can be done through the software, and we'll talk about that. There's a lot of money to be saved with the Hart voting system simply based on the paper that it uses, lightweight, low-cost ballot stock. We also use a lot of commercial off-the-shelf products where we can, and specifically our high-speed scanners are made by companies like Kodak and Canon, very high performance and extremely cost-effective. And then lastly, I think maybe the most important thing about Hart, and we'll talk a lot about this, is our flexible business model, meaning we want to do business the way that you want to do business. And so why Hart? Why now? Let's just face it, there are a lot of things going on. First of all, elections are expensive. The equipment in the field, and this isn't just in Idaho, but I travel all over the country and meet with people to talk about their wants and desires going forward, and their equipment is aging. The costs to support or the risks to potentially not support the equipment, is a concern, and their per ballot expenses are concerned. So they're expensive to run elections. It's a big number in their budgets. The other reason that you might want to consider Hart is we have a proven solution to ensure success. I mentioned that we do business your way. We're going to talk a lot about that. We do business with just about 600 counties in the country, and every one of them came from an existing system. I would say that one of Hart's core competencies is change management. We really know how to take a client from one major system to a new major system in a painless and efficient way, and one that really instills a lot of confidence. And so that's a great model that we've deployed. We do allow our clients to have either total autonomy or provide a complete turnkey solution. So whether you want to program your own machines or have us do it, maybe you want to lay out your own ballots, or perhaps you don't, we can do that for you. Maybe you want to print your ballots in-house, or you'd like us to print them, or perhaps you have a relationship with a local printer in Idaho. All of that is flexible, and you can tabulate on your own schedule. We'll talk a bit about the software. And then the last point is real value in buying today. I know some of you may be on this webinar today because you're in the market for new election equipment. Others perhaps just learning and a bit curious about some new options. But as we go into a new state, Hart is always very aggressive in really kind of making their mark and beginning to accumulate customers and accumulate some scale. And so for Idaho customers, we will be offering very special pricing between now and June of 2014, which might give you enough time if you're in the market to consider what Hart can do for you. So let me dive in to Hart as a company just to give you a background. And the reason I do this is buying an election system, and for some of you, you've bought one in the past. For others, this may be the first time you do buy an election system, but this is what I do know about that purchase. Normally, the purchase of an election system for a county is as big a purchase as they're going to make in any given year. So it's not something that is trivial. The other thing is, buying an election system is not like buying a computer. You're going to have that system for 10 or 15 years, and it's really a marriage with the vendor that you do business with. So we think it's important to talk about not only the technology, but the company that's behind the technology. And so Hart does have a legacy of experience in the marketplace. We celebrated our 100th anniversary in business last year. We've started in Austin, Texas, where we're headquartered today. And we did start in Austin printing ballots for the city of Austin. Today we find ourselves exclusively focused on elections technology, and we also are financially sound. And that's important. You know, if you were looking at election equipment 10 or 15 years ago, you might have 15 or 20 options. When HAVA dollars were free flowing, a lot of people jumped into the business and jumped right out because they didn't know how to manage it for the long term. And I think Hart has done a very good job over the decades. We're also growing. While the business is mature and we've been voting in America for quite some time, Hart continues to add more and more counties. Over the last 5 years, we've doubled the number of counties that we do business in. And we're fortunate enough, the last 2 statewide procurements that were done, to compete heavily and win both of those. The one thing I will say about this is I think Idaho likes to do business with people that they can trust. I'm excited to bring the Hart system as an Idaho resident. I live in Ada County. I want to see the state kind of embrace the technology, and I can tell you that exceeding client expectations is tantamount to Hart's culture from the top down. And then lastly, technology and innovation. We were the company that introduced digital technology that allows you to scan in ways that are, we think, much more efficient. We're going to talk a bit about that today. So here's just a picture of a map. I'd like to give you a visual of where we currently do business. We are in 15 states. I would say that Hart has, since the advent of electronic voting, Hart has had measured growth. We haven't gone out and grown our company through acquisition or merger. We've really grown the business organically, and I think that's important because it's given us a very firm and stable technology base. We haven't bolted on a multitude of different systems and components to kind of homogenize the Hart voting system. It's been developed in a way that I think really does a good job, and we've gone across the country and gone into 15 states. We're now obviously entering the Idaho market, and we hope Idaho will quickly be orange instead of white on this map. The other thing I point out on this map, you'll see a couple of stars. The red stars represent the state contract awards that I mentioned. I say that only because they're great examples of our business model flexing to the way that you want and need to do business in your county. For example, in Hawaii, they awarded us the contract and said, we really love the way you guys bring technology to the market. As a matter of fact, we not only want your technology, we'd like you to run our elections. So every election cycle in Hawaii, we actually provide turnkey election services with our staff and equipment for the state. On the flip side of the coin, Oklahoma, they loved the technology. They awarded us a contract. They said, we'd really like the technology, but we want you to come in and train us and get out of here as quickly as possible. They wanted complete autonomy, and we'll do the same thing for you, whatever you need, whether it's starting with a lot of hand-holding and building up to a level of competence where you want to be completely autonomous or anywhere in between. I talked a bit about client expectations and satisfaction. You know, this is important. The one thing I will tell you is once we commit to a state, we are there for the long haul, and you're going to get to know Hart people and personnel, and it's important for us that we have extremely satisfied clients that know us, like us, and want to continue to do business with us, and quite frankly, most importantly, that want to refer us to new counties. Our existing clients are our best marketing and sales assets. And so one of the things that we do to make sure that we keep our eye on the ball is we do a client survey every 6 months. And this question, which reads, how do you rate the customer service you received from Hart? It's one of many questions we ask, but I think it really represents just overall how people feel about doing business with us. And our goal is to be north of 90% in responses that are above average or excellent. And you can see we have a pretty good track record of doing that. And where we fall short or where people write in concerns or comments, each one of those are followed up from the operations personnel to make sure that we are addressing everything that clients are interested in. Now, the other thing that we do is not just a survey of our clients, because, you know, it's easy when you talk to the people you do business with, or if you talk to maybe your voters or the people in and around your office, you know, you can kind of start drinking your own Kool-Aid. We wanted a way to really not just measure ourselves with what our clients had to say, but also measure ourselves against the biggest and best brands in the world. And so we did introduce something called the Net Promoter Score, which is represented on this slide. And the best way to describe it is this metric allows you to measure people that promote your brand versus people that detract from it. And so imagine yourself, you go out to dinner, you're all excited about going out to dinner, you pick the restaurant, you go, and you have just an awful experience. The service is terrible, the food is cold, and it's just terrible. You come back to work the next week, and you tell everybody about it. In that case, you are a detractor. Conversely, when you go out and have that wonderful experience and you come back and tell everybody about it, you're a promoter. And so this measurement is able to measure the number of promoters versus the number of detractors a company has. And it's tiered from top to bottom. And Hart finds itself in the top tier with some of the most well-known and trusted and respected brands in the world. We're proud of that, and we'll continue to to measure ourselves against these high standards. All right, so that's everything that I wanted to mention about Hart InterCivic as a company and as a background. Now I'm going to move into the Hart voting system. And the Hart voting system is precisely what the Secretary of State's office has just officially certified in the state of Idaho. And this slide, this picture, really just represents the flow of data in the Hart voting system and some of the software packages that are included in the Hart voting system. We're not going to go into a significant detail in this webinar. We would certainly do that with you if you wanted to dive in a little bit deeper. But so I am going to talk about some of our solutions. First, I'm going to talk about central scanning solutions. But I'm going to see if you guys are awake in the audience. I have a picture on the screen for you. I'm wondering, by using your chat or questions functionality on the right, does anybody know what this building is? You Idaho residents out there on the line. Or is anybody listening? So I'm not sure if everybody has the ability to type in their answers, but this is obviously the state capitol building in Boise. and let's dive into the central scanning solutions that we offer. So Hart's central scanning product is really a very sophisticated piece of software that Hart has developed that rides on commercial off-the-shelf equipment. And we think that this is really important for a few reasons. Number one, you're not saddled with proprietary, bulky equipment that may or may not be supported for a long term or have supply chain issues. We use products from Dell Computer, Canon, and Kodak, and it allows for enterprise-level scalability. So as your needs or your county's registered voters grow, it's very easy to add to the solution. The other thing that I mentioned to you is that the Hart Central Scanning solution is a digital solution, and so it's not optical. Optical scanning basically flashes light off of a piece of paper and tells you whether there's a mark or not. Digital scanning actually takes pictures of each of the ballots, just like you could do with your phone or camera. And because we capture images of every single ballot, once you've scanned the ballots, you can securely store them and not have to go back to them. You can then adjudicate and resolve issues through the software interface. And this is a picture of that process that we would train you on. It's all color-coded to kind of tell you what the software sees as a problem on a ballot. But you can see here on the top in orange, the software recognizes that there is an overvote, and down below it recognizes that there is a write-in. You're able to adjudicate those issues contest by contest and do that without having to necessarily physically manage or manipulate the ballots. Just a few more points that I'd like to make about the Hart Central Scanning solution. It does offer significant transparency and auditability. I mean, imagine if for whatever reason you needed a third party to audit the results of your election. Rather than giving them access to the paper ballots, you could download all the images of the ballots onto a hard drive and give them something that then does not affect or grant access to the public to the original ballots. As I mentioned, you can set up multiple scanning stations as we discuss your needs and your capacity requirements. We're able to size that for you, and as things change, whether up or down, there's options to scale up or scale down. The Hart voting system includes some very unique functionality on the ballot itself, and therefore we can detect duplicate ballots, which is an important safety feature. We also offer the ability to scan only, which means when we scan ballots on this system, it's simply scanning the ballot and it's doing no tabulation. And what this allows folks to do is, particularly for early or absentee voting, as those ballots come in, they're able to scan them in advance of Election Day and then tabulate the results at the appointed time on Election Day. And that's been very, very helpful over the years for people to get done and get results reported very shortly after the polls close. Everything that you scan, you can store those, and any annotations that are made are stored digitally. So if you ever want to go back and audit, all of that is available. If you have candidates that come in and want to know how you ruled on a particular ballot, you'll be able to pull reports by various precinct level or contest level and share that information. It makes it easy. You do not need to pre-sort the ballots. Best practices allow some efficiencies if you do sort the ballots and get them sorted in a way that they're all facing the same. But you can put the ballots in foot first, head first, upside down, and the system will recognize them any way you put them in, and that might save you some time. So that's everything that I wanted to say about central scanning. I would just tell you that in my experience, I've worked in elections with the Hart Central Scanning solution, which, just to point out to you, is this picture here. You have the scanner on the left, printer on the right for reports as you're doing, and a PC that runs the process. And you can scan stacks, large stacks of ballots in batches, and you can scan thousands and thousands of ballots per day, and we can provide to you the metrics for this solution. So next, we're going to quickly introduce our accessible solution. Another Idaho trivia picture here, and one of the things that's always nice in the spring in Idaho is to see Shoshone Falls flowing like it's flowing here. Awesome Idaho beauty. So our accessible solution is it's an outstanding product. We have deployed close to 50,000 units. Our equipment in the field has a failure rate of less than 1%. This is truly a very rugged device, and it's lighter than the solutions that have been in Idaho for a long time. So it's easier to deploy to the precincts or polling places. It's a HAVA-compliant, award-winning system. It doesn't require any calibration, so from a maintenance perspective, it's very easy. It's lighter weight, and it really, the bottom line is this ensures that people with disabilities are able to vote privately and independently. And so we've gotten a lot of feedback from the disabled community about our eSlate device, and this is what we would offer in Idaho. Now, we also in Idaho have a verifiable ballot option, and so this is basically a paper ballot, verifiable ballot option that connects to, and you can see it here on the left-hand side of the fully assembled unit. So once a person has done the voting electronically, it's going to print their options on paper so that they can yet again review them before they choose to cast their ballot. The entire system basically folds down into its own carrying case, and it's very easy to assemble. It's all self-contained. You can fit it into the back seat of a car, and it's built in such a way that it doesn't tip. It's easy to store, and so this would be a system that you would use for accessibility. The last piece that I wanted to talk about are precinct scanning solutions, and I guess one more picture, which is Mount Bora, highest peak in the state. This is the eScan, which is our precinct-based digital scanner. And so in the case of those of you that want to scan ballots at the polling places, whether that's because of capacity or a smaller county and you don't need a high-speed central scanning solution that's going to be a little bit more expensive, or you are a county that wants to have the results scanned at the polling place all day long so that you're able to tabulate that much quicker once the polls close, this would be the solution for you. It's the eScan precinct-based scanner. And here it's configured. I'm getting a message, by the way. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was getting a message that I'd lost an internet connection. So I assume that everybody can still hear me, and I'm going to just reconnect to the internet and hopefully get my screen. If somebody at Hart is listening, can you let me know if you can see my screen, please?
Hi, Ron. We can see your screen.
Okay, thank you. All right, sorry about that. Reconnected to the network. So in the end, I showed you 3 solutions for Idaho. Once again, They were the central scanning solution, here's the picture of the central scanning solution, the accessibility solution, here's a picture of that, and then the precinct scanning solution. Whether you deploy all of those or one of those, when you program your election, the programming process is all done through the same software, and all of the programming is then written to common media devices that go into each of these three different solutions. So really, ballot layout and programming of the election couldn't be any simpler, and all of that media then comes back out of these devices at the end of the election into a PC for tabulation. And so that's really an introduction to the offerings that have been approved by Secretary Acersa. And the last thing I would just tell you about Hart is whether you have HAVA money left, whether you'll perhaps purchase equipment with county funds, Hart does offer very aggressive financing options. I know earlier this year we did a municipal financing for a county that allowed them to make annual payments in arrears with an interest rate of about 1.5%. And so there's very affordable ways to deploy new equipment. And then I'll just remind you, as I mentioned early on, as we enter into the Idaho marketplace, now that we're certified in the state, we are offering special pricing through June of 2014. And so all you need to do, if you'd like to discuss this further, is you can contact me at this email address provided on the slide, or you can call my local phone number there, and I would be glad to help you or get you in contact with the right members of the sales team that can work with you. Now, I know a couple of questions did come in while we were on the line, and so at this time, this concludes the formal slides in the presentation. I would like to open it up to any questions, so if you do have questions, please type them and submit them, and we will read them aloud, and I will try to do the best to answer them. And so, Lori, do you have any questions that have come in that need to be asked, please?
Yes, we do have a few questions for you. The first question is, are you currently working with any Idaho printers?
Oh, that's a great question. We, Hart, the answer is we've had discussions with Caxton printers out of Caldwell, Idaho. I know that they do a lot of ballot printing throughout the state, and they have the equipment necessary to print Hart ballots. And our business model is that we want you to be able to buy ballots, print ballots from whomever you'd like. So we can sell them to you, or we can certify your local printer. And it's a pretty straightforward certification process. The key issue is that the printer needs to be able to print from digital files. And that's something we'll work with them on. So if you do have a local printer and you'd like to continue to do business with them, just let us know who they are, and we can talk about getting them certified, which is typically a very painless process.
All right, and the second question that came in for you, Ron, is what kind of support do you provide to help a county make the transition to our product?
Okay. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, we provide as little or as much support as a county wants. What I will say is typically when we quote a package for a new county to transition to the Hart voting system, that quote includes, depending on your size, some number of days of professional services, typically 10 to 20 days, depending on kind of the workload and the size of the county. And there's really a few elements that take place in those professional service days. One is we're going to come in and we're going to train your staff and give you a significant level of training on all of the hardware and software. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to sit down and we're going to do a change management analysis. And so basically think of that as comparing all of your current processes to all of the Hart recommended processes. Many of those are going to line up because, you know, we're in the same business doing the same thing. And where we work with you is where there are gaps. How do we build processes for the new Hart system that make sense and are repeatable for your county? And we've done that hundreds of times, and I think that's an area where we really shine. And then lastly, we will support you on election day. In the first election that you run the Hart voting system, we will actually have specialists on site just to make sure that everything goes well. If there are any questions, that you have somebody on site. And we can provide on-site support. It is an added fee beyond the first election for as long as a client would like. And some clients have actually asked us to have somebody on site for every election for the last decade. Others are fine after 1 or 2 elections. Any other questions, Lori?
That was the last question, Ron. So,
Okay.
as I mentioned earlier, we will make a recording of the webinar for everyone, and we will email a follow-up as well. So thank you, and thank you for your time today, Ron.
Okay, thanks, everybody.